This is a game that I frequently use in my anatomy and physiology classes. It's called the Blood Typing Game, and it can be accessed from nobelprize.org. Simply go to this webpage, and under Educational Resources, you'll see the Blood Typing Game. You can click on the link, and the game will open. So students hit proceed, and then they have a few options for games that they can play. If they want to play just a quick game without entering any of their personal information, they can select from these two options, or they can play a mission-based game. With this selection, they will create an account. So they'll need to enter their username, their email address, and their password. Once they create an account, this will save their achievements, their scores. So here is a list of achievements that they can master as they participate in this game. It also keeps track of their scores and how many successes and how many mistakes they've made in the process of playing the game. Also, at any time, they can come back to this main menu and review the tutorials that are available on this web page. At this point, students have already learned about the different human blood groups, how to determine someone's blood type, and how to determine which types of blood transfusions a patient can receive. If they forget this information or just need a review, they can go to each of these tutorials. This first one reviews the components of blood and what makes the various blood types different from each other. There are 8 different blood types, and these are determined based on the antigens and antibodies that may be present in an individual's blood. Once they've finished reviewing the tutorial, they can go back to the main menu, look at the next one, or they can start playing the game. So they'll start with the first mission, and they're given a case study where they're told the scenario that they have a patient who's been brought into the hospital and they need to determine this patient's blood type. So when they hit proceed, they can do just that. They have instructions for what to do. So in order to determine the blood type, they need to add the patient's blood to 3 different tubes. Each one contains a different antibody. Based on what they've learned in class and what they've reviewed in the tutorials, they will know what to look for in order to determine the patient's blood type. They will look for the reactions between the patient's antigens in their blood and the antibodies that are in these test tubes. In test tube A, containing the A antibody, and this one containing the Rh antibody, there has been a reaction as seen by the clumping of blood. But in this middle test tube, there's not been a reaction. This indicates that the patient is A positive. And this gives them feedback that they are correct. Now they can move on to the next mission. They're given their result, and they're also given a little bit of information about blood. They can replay this same mission, or they can select the next mission. So this one gives them a few more patients. This time there will be 3 patients which they will need to perform blood typing on. They do this the same way by adding blood to each of the test tubes and looking for the reaction. Based on what you can see occurring in this test tube compared to these two, the student should know that this patient's blood contains the A antigen only. That makes them A negative. They will perform the same thing with the other 2 patients. If they select an incorrect blood type, they will be given feedback and they'll have the opportunity to try again. So I will select the third patient and they will perform the same steps in order to determine their blood type. So based on these reactions, they should be able to see that this patient is O positive. So each mission gets progressively more and more difficult. The second one is completed and they can move on to the next mission. In this one, they not only need to determine the patient's blood type, but also determine which blood transfusions they can receive. So first I'll determine the blood type. And again, just the reaction between the antigens in the patient's blood and the antibodies that are in these test tubes tells me that the patient is B negative. But now the student needs to go one step further, and based on this, they need to figure out which types of blood this patient can receive. They are told that the patient will get 2 blood bags. So there's 2 different blood types that he can receive. So he can receive B negative and O negative. And now this mission is complete. So the student can stop here or can continue on to the next mission. And if they go to the main menu, they can see the achievements that they've earned. So now they've unlocked several. And they can also see their scores, how many patients they've performed blood typing on, how many blood transfusions they've done, how many patients they've looked at. So how many mistakes and how many successes they've had. This is a great way to receive feedback and just to keep track of how they've done in the game each time they play.